Evening rain clung to the glass walls of Whitmore Tower as the CEO's birthday gala unfolded. Gold lights, expensive laughter, a room engineered for perfection. Near the back stood Nathan Cole, a caterer in a borrowed jacket, replaying the voicemail from his mother asking when he would pick up his daughter. He steadied a tray, wishing the night would end quietly. Then a co-worker leaned in with a smirk that cut sharper than the silverware. "Come on, Nate. Is single. Say something." Nathan shook his head, heat rising in his face, but the teasing drew eyes toward him, including Catherine Whitmore's. Their gazes collided. His full of exhaustion, hers polished but undeniably lonely. And in that charged second, with executives watching and pressure tightening around him, he forced an awkward half-smile. "Fine," he muttered. "Marry me." The joke dropped into the room like shattered crystal. Her expression, hurt, not offended, told him instantly he'd crossed a line he didn't understand. The music faltered, whispers tightened, and Nathan felt the ground tilt beneath him as the CEO turned away without a word. Whatever happened next would not stay in that ballroom. If this moment grips you, like the video and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales for more stories that pull you in from the very first breath. The silence that followed Catherine's abrupt exit clung to the air long after the ballroom lights dimmed. Nathan stayed rooted in place, tray trembling in his grip, as if moving too quickly might shatter what was left of his dignity. The hum of the party had collapsed into uneasy murmurs, and he felt every stare carving into him. When he finally slipped out the service door, rain had already begun to fall again, soft, cold, and strangely fitting. By Monday morning, he walked into Whitmore Tower holding his breath, expecting the security guard to stop him, expecting HR to be waiting with a folder and a forced smile. Instead, the guard waved him through, indifferent, and the uniform room smelled exactly the same: detergent, steam, and the faint metallic scent of the lockers. For a moment, he allowed himself to believe the disaster had passed. Then his supervisor appeared. "Cole, the CEO wants to see you. Now." The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt endless. When he stepped into Catherine Whitmore's office, she didn't look angry. She looked tired, too tired for someone who lived at the top of the tower. Her eyes searched his face with a quiet intensity, and the conversation that followed would alter both their lives. The hurt he heard beneath her controlled voice unsettled him. He had never imagined his joke could scrape against scars she had carried for years. When he left her office, he didn't feel forgiven. He felt seen, and that was far more terrifying. Days passed, and something unspoken began threading between them. Glances that lingered a second too long, accidental meetings in unexpected corners, shared silences that felt heavier than words. But the building had eyes, and once the whispers ignited, nothing could contain them. He heard his name in hallways where no one spoke to him. Conversations cut off when he entered a room. Tasks he had performed for months without issue were suddenly in need of review, as if he had become suspicious overnight. The worst came when his daughter Lily returned from school with red eyes, repeating what another parent had accused him of: chasing a rich woman to escape poverty. That night, while she slept on the couch with her favorite blanket, Nathan made a decision. He would not let his daughter grow up watching him shrink to survive. The next morning he went to HR. "This isn't about rumors," he said steadily. "This is about retaliation. And it's affecting my child." The HR representative blinked behind her glasses, trying to maintain her practiced neutrality. "We'll conduct a review," she said. "No," he replied, leaning forward. "You'll conduct an investigation." Word spread fast. By the time Catherine heard what he had done, the gossip had mutated into something uglier, suggesting he was manipulating her, using his child, even threatening HR. None of it was true, but truth rarely mattered in corporate ecosystems built on hierarchy and fear. Catherine didn't sleep that night, or the next. When she finally walked into the quarterly management meeting, she carried something she hadn't shown in years: defiance. 40 executives straightened as she entered, expecting strategy updates, budget reviews, forecasts. What they received instead was a reckoning. "I'm aware," she began calmly, Of rumors regarding myself and an employee in our facilities department. Papers stilled. Chairs froze. The air tightened around every person in that room. There is no inappropriate relationship, she continued. But the harassment he has endured because some of you find entertainment in inventing scandal is unacceptable. Her gaze swept the table, lingering on the worst offenders, the ones who smiled too quickly at powerful people and sneered too confidently at everyone else. Let me be clear, she said. If you choose to measure a man's worth based on rank instead of character, that is your personal failure. But you do not get to weaponize that failure inside my company. Silence burned. For those participating in rumor campaigns, she added, your positions here are no longer guaranteed. Some executives paled. One shifted in his seat, murmuring about misunderstanding protocol. Catherine didn't bother responding. She closed her folder, dismissed the room, and walked out with the unshakable authority of someone who had finally remembered she deserved to be human. Nathan heard about the speech long before the official memo went out. His co-workers' expressions changed. Not warm but wary. Like they suddenly realized the man they'd been pushing around had someone willing to fight for him, and not because of power, but because he mattered. That night, he wrote Catherine a letter. Real one. Ink on paper. He didn't know why. Only that someone who had been brave for him deserved something sincere in return. What unfolded afterward? Dinners, late-night talks, Lily befriending Catherine's cat, the gentle domesticity that formed in a small inherited house, was too fragile to name at first. Healing rarely arrives dramatically. Sometimes it slips in softly, like light through an old curtain. But the building had not forgotten. And one man in particular, Marcus, the co-worker whose teasing had sparked the entire disaster, was determined to remind Nathan of his place. It began with subtle sabotage, misplaced inventory, swap schedules, and finally, a staged complaint accusing Nathan of inappropriate behavior in a restricted area. HR summoned him again. This time, Catherine was already waiting for him outside the conference room. Who filed the report? She asked. Marcus, he said quietly. Her jaw tightened, not with emotion but precision, the way a blade sharpens before use. The investigation lasted 2 days. On the third, HR discovered security footage. Marcus entering the restricted area himself, altering equipment logs, and later deleting access data from his own terminal. Worse, he had messaged 2 other employees, encouraging them to help push Cole out before he gets too comfortable. When Catherine confronted him, he tried to salvage his arrogance. He doesn't belong here, Marcus insisted. He's using you. Everyone can see it. Catherine stepped closer, her voice steady. You used my name to justify harassment. You manipulated records. You tried to destroy a father's livelihood because you felt threatened by the attention he received. That ends today. You're firing me over him. No, she replied. I'm firing you because you exposed exactly the kind of man you are. Security escorted Marcus out in front of his department. His badge deactivated instantly. Colleagues who once laughed at his jokes turned away, unwilling to align themselves with someone who had finally learned what consequences felt like. When the elevator doors closed on him for the last time, no one spoke. But everyone understood. The empire of casual cruelty he had built collapsed in a single morning, and it was satisfying. For Nathan, the aftermath felt quieter, calmer. He wasn't celebrated. He wasn't promoted with fanfare. But he was respected. Sincerely this time. And the people who had once avoided him now greeted him with genuine warmth, as if witnessing his courage had forced them to examine their own. Weeks later, as autumn settled across Connecticut, Nathan walked into Catherine's grandmother's house carrying a small box. Lily ran ahead to find the cat. Catherine met him in the doorway with a smile that still caught him off guard. I have something for you, he said. But before he opened the box, before he took her hands, before the moment became something bigger than either of them had expected, he glanced back, just once, at the quiet, ordinary street outside. A life built on sincerity, not hierarchy. A love built from a moment that never should have happened. A future rebuilt after a man who tried to tear it apart was finally held accountable. And as Nathan lifted the lid to reveal the ring his grandmother once wore, a thought brushed his mind like a steady promise. Some endings aren't loud. Some justice doesn't roar. Sometimes the fall of the cruel is enough, and the rise of the kind is everything. And Marcus, he didn't just lose his job. He lost the power he once loved wielding. More than that, he learned what it meant to be on the outside looking in. And that, to everyone who had ever felt small under his shadow, was the most satisfying justice of all. Spring settled gently over the little house as Nathan watched Catherine greet Lily at the garden gate, sunlight catching in her hair as if the world had finally decided to be kind. The chaos of the past months felt distant now, not forgotten, simply quieter, like a storm that had spent itself. What surprised him most wasn't the peace that followed, but the certainty growing inside him. He no longer lived at the mercy of other people's opinions. He had stepped forward once, and it had changed everything. Catherine joined him by the old apple tree, her smile soft, steady, unguarded. "Strange," she said, brushing her hand against his. "How truth has a way of clearing the air when nothing else can." He nodded, realizing she wasn't talking about the company anymore. She was talking about herself, about both of them, finally standing without armor. Lily burst through the yard with a string of wildflowers, placing them in Catherine's hands as if sealing something unspoken. The moment was simple, ordinary, and yet it held more weight than any grand gesture. It felt like choosing a new beginning, one built on honesty rather than fear. As the three of them walked inside, the last light of day slipped across the kitchen floor, casting long, warm shapes that looked almost like a promise. If this story touched you, please like, share, and help Canada's Heartfelt Tales grow by subscribing. Your support keeps these journeys alive.